I just tried to think of a pun involving the title of this episode, and I failed.
I think the title of this episode is Pun Enough.
It is, isn't it? Yes, it's quite enough of that. Yeah. Thin Ice is our next one, and actually, here's how I think we should start this one. What were your expectations of what kind of thing it would be going in?
Well, okay, so the kind of thing that I thought it would be, well, when I see an early historical, the first one I think of is the Shakespeare Code, which is, in my opinion, the best early historical in a series. I knew that Sarah Dollard was writing it, and one of the strongest aspects of her writing from her previous script, Face the Raven, I absolutely loved how she found lots of creative ways to show the Doctor solving the mystery, not just doing it through dialogue, you know? So
yes,
we saw him going to a library and studying maps, and we saw him flying above the city with Clara dangling out with technology on her face. And so I was hoping we'd see more of that, more of the procedural, more of being shown all the different aspects of the mystery and being taken through the process of solving it with him.
Yes.
What about you? What were you expecting?
I was expecting... Well, my expectations were it would be, just this romp, and I'd enjoy it a bit, but I probably wouldn't watch it again. But I was excited by the fact that Sarah Dollard was doing it. I mean, it almost... The setting almost implies that Sarah Dollard has this fascination with, like, what's going on in street corners, doesn't it? Like, these settings, that there's sort of a familiar edge to all of them, where you got this sort of dense population, lots of people walking around, or what's going on here. It's a creative setting for an array of characters to sort of come in and out. So my expectations were, this will be fun, but I don't think it's going to be anything spectacular.
Yeah.
I have to tell you, as a result, I was actually very pleasantly surprised by this one.
I thought it was great.
Yeah. If you don't mind me saying, this for me is where the truly great development of the relationship between the Doctor and Bill actually is. Yeah. So when Bill has to go through this awful ordeal of watching a child die, basically be eaten, and then speaking to him, and then later on finding the Doctor still cares deeply about those moments, but he just maybe doesn't let on as much. I don't know. And then asking him, have you killed anyone? Have you just moved on from that? I don't know. I thought that was a spectacular character moment. Very weighty. Didn't expect to find it here. And for me, this is the advancement, the major advancement of their relationship. But yeah, I'll let you speak on this.
There were some real guts in this episode for how dark they were willing to get. We weren't only talking about the death of the child, which was one step further than they normally go, well, not just in Doctor Who, but in most forms of media. You don't normally see children getting killed like that.
Certainly not. No, it's I mean, there's a theme in this series, isn't there, of people being eaten up. Like in the second episode, people are kind of grinded to just their bones. I think the same happens in this one, and then the first one you're sort of eaten up by this puddle. Fourth one you're eaten up by lice or whatever else.
I guess so.
But here it happens to a child, so it's extra gutsy, as you say.
Yeah, but they were also tackling face on the extremely real issue of taking a black woman to this period of history.
Slavery, yeah, exactly. It's never shown up before.
Yeah, I mean, even they reference it with Martha a couple of times. Normally, it's just like a really, in human nature, it's just unpleasant racism. You know, it's just the schoolboys being absolutely vile about her skin color, and in the Shakespeare Code, it's completely brushed off. She says, well, I'm not exactly white. And the Doctor says, no, it's fine. Just walk around like you own the place.
I know, it's like a little blip at the beginning where they forgot she was black or something. And then
and I mean, It's funny, and I can understand why they wouldn't want to deal with that issue, and it's a nice way to avoid the conversation. But I thought this episode not only had sort of the guts to tackle such an important and emotionally horrifying theme, but I felt that the writing was of a level of quality to handle it respectfully.
Yes, and actually talk about it, as you say.
Yeah.
Because it is, as we say, on the romp end of things. I was going to say also, I particularly enjoyed the speech that the Doctor gave about the value you place on a life rather than the value you place on industry.
Oh yeah, completely.
And to give this some context, actually, so I said that I wasn't in a great mood when I watched Smile. When I watched Thin Ice, I just finished my dissertation, so I was in a great...
Amazing.
So that might have had an impact as well. I'm trying at the moment, as it happens, to get very politically engaged in things, so I've been out campaigning for the Labour Party, and actually, I was a member of a Labour forum which posted the video of this speech. But, you know, the bloke eating grapes, they put a blue rosette on his chest.
Yeah.
And George Osborne's face on his at the moment where he says, that would require an ounce of compassion, so it's not your day, is it?
Yes. I mean, I think that's a completely accurate connection to make. I think the Doctor he's always been a socialist. He's always been a complete hippie. I mean, absolutely. And I keep seeing online people complaining about Doctor Who getting political. When hasn't it been political? It's always about the importance of life. It's always about respecting the views and the opinions of the downtrodden and the oppressed, and distributing power and saying the girl who works in the shop is the most important person in the universe, and so is the medical student, and you know, especially the Russell T Davies series. It's about finding people who. Series 1 is based on a council estate, right?
Yeah, well, exactly. No.
Yeah.
Is it that it's now getting political, or is it that they're just noticing it's political and they don't like that they're noticing it?
Well, I don't know how they could have missed it. That's my thing. Because I just think it's always been political, always.
Yeah, and I'm just appreciating it, going into that territory. I mean, you could even argue that this was meant to be a dig at the Tories, like just straight out. Sarah Dollard said, "I'm gonna put a little bit."
Even more so, you know, when we get onto Oxygen, we'll see that that's a massive theme of capitalism. It doesn't even hide it behind analogy. The Doctor says, "Oh, and that's the end of capitalism," and then you'll think of another mistake to make, you know. So is Thin Ice. Thin Ice is about viewing industry and quote unquote progress at the expense of human life as not being worth it at all. And both of those episodes, they're both about that.
Yeah, and I mean, of course, as you said, the title Thin Ice is a pun. They're all on the edge of being used for this heinous system that this man has set up. It's, I don't know, the commentary's a bit more at the forefront. We've had people like this in Doctor Who stories before, like, the creature must be fed is a line we've probably heard many times. But, yeah, I appreciated that. And I also appreciated Capaldi's Doctor's interaction with children in this one. I believe there's a moment where he's reading them a story.
Yes.
And, I don't know, that aspect of the Doctor's character, that he will happily take a moment just to read a storybook to people, is nice. It actually reminded me, I hate to say this, I hate to get right back into politics again, but it reminded me of how much Jeremy Corbyn was lambasted by The Sun for reading a children's book in a funny way. Like, he was lambasted for having, pulling a funny face, even though that's exactly what you do when you're committed to entertaining children. Yeah.
It was nice. Also, for me, one thing I really like about his Doctor is his love of stories, as I mentioned maybe 2 episodes ago. How he views the world through the Grimm's fairy tales, or he relates the things that are going on to myths and legends that he knows about. And it's hilarious that he's just telling this completely hideous story about, what is it, the monster that takes children's thumbs? Is that what he was telling them? Yeah,
something like that.
It's great, and it's such a callous story that it's like the Capaldi Doctor, who started off being so unpleasant in many ways. He's still got that in him, where he'll happily tell a story about a monster taking children's thumbs.
Very slightly sociopathic is absolutely fine with me.
Yeah, I mean it's just like the other side of the Matt Smith coin, where Matt Smith was charming and delightful and completely mad and completely out of touch. So's Capaldi. He's out of touch, but there's just that slightly callous streak to him.
It's like warm sociopathy. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, like well-meaning at all times.
Yeah,
and just the fact that he had this little army of children, I don't know, it was just great fun. So, do you think that even as just this little adventure story, it succeeds as well?
Yes, definitely. Like I say, I like how Sarah Dollard finds ways to show the mystery being unravelled. So we go from the very depths of society, these orphaned children, Oliver Twist-like, to the upper echelons of high society in the Lord's house, and we go from the ice fair to the workhouse, and we go from the top of the beast to the tail of the beast. We go underneath the ice, and we go up above the bridge. You know, it's like we're seeing such a huge variety of locations, and it's not superficial, because we learn something new and we learn something important, be it about the characters or about the mystery at each one of these locations. And I think that's good Doctor Who writing. Because this episode has the variety that Smile didn't. Even though I like Smile very much, it lacked the variety of Thin Ice, if that makes sense.
Sure, yes, no, that absolutely makes sense. And what a great setting in the Frost Fair. I mean, you know, there's a little bit of education to this. Whenever Doctor Who goes historical, there's always an element of learning something new. That was originally the pitch, I believe, behind Doctor Who in the 60s. Was the kids ought to learn something.
Yeah.
Fun, Thin Ice. And now we can get on to Knock Knock in the next episode.
Catch you later, team.